Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we are very pleased you have joined us for our Clean Energy Metals Conference. Our next presentation is from Intrepid Metals. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for a one-on-one meeting by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Ken Enquist, Chief Executive Officer of Intrepid Metals, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol IMTCF and on the TSXV under the symbol INTR. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks everybody, and thanks to OTC for giving me this opportunity to present Intrepid Metals and our portfolio of projects to everyone. We'll get started here with some forward-looking statements, and you should make yourself familiar with these. This presentation is on our website and can be downloaded, and you can take a look at this in more detail at your will. At Intrepid Metals, we started out with a vision of district scale resources or district scale opportunities in tier 1 jurisdiction. So we have 3 major projects in tier 1 Arizona. They're all fast-tracked potential as they're sitting on private lands, and really that is a significant factor when you're talking about permitting and the lack of permitting hurdles that we see. So we've done 2 drill programs so far, one in 2024, one in 2025, and we have virtually had no permitting time at all. I think it took 4 days for us to get our permits for the 2025 program this year. And as we put these portfolios together, and we have our flagship project, Corral, we're really starting to, and continue to do the work that we're doing, we're really starting to uncover the large-scale porphyry potential here and identifying some new copper-gold porphyry targets. And in large part due to one of the most experienced teams and qualified teams I've ever worked with in the junior mine developer sector. We have, quite the technical staff. We've got an excellent board and management with a lot of experience. You can see some of the areas we've worked in our collective past. And you can see here our corporate structure, our capital structure. This is why we're early days here. We've got about 61 million shares outstanding, 91 fully diluted. Something to note here, we do have 19 million warrants at 45 cents that are expiring in January. So we'll be doing something with those warrants pretty soon here. And that will be feeding into our treasury and will allow us to continue on with the work that we're doing right now in the field and in marketing and investor outreach for quite some time now without needing another financing. So we'll be looking to do something with those very soon. Like I said, our primary projects in our portfolio are Corral Copper, which is a copper, gold, silver system, largely a carbonate replacement deposit, CRD, that's being fed through skarn-type systems from obviously porphyry sources, the heated porphyry sources. Tombstone South is another really exciting project that we have. It's a bit deeper. There is mineralization in the surface. It's silver, lead, zinc. We have some interesting geophysics on that is begging to be explored further and to be drilled. But we've got some deep holes to drill in that one. And then Mesa Well, which is our earliest stage project. It needs a lot of work before we start putting a framework around a drill program. So we have to do some sampling and some geophysics and everything, but it sits right up there in Elephant Country, just west of Safford and Morenci and east of San Manuel's prolific Kalamazoo mine and Faraday Copper's exploration or development mine project as well. So if you're not familiar with Arizona, Arizona produces about 70% of all of the U.S. copper demand. It's the largest mineral producing state in the country. It produces a lot of the critical minerals that are on the list. You can add silver to that now. I saw recently that silver's been added. It's mining friendly government and jurisdictions and the local jurisdictions as well in the counties, particularly where we are located. And it's got a history of skilled workforce and continuous mining for over a century, and it's been a major part of the economy. So it's very well supported. As I said, we're in southeast Arizona at Corral and Tombstone and Mesa Well. So we have in Cochise County in the very southeast corner, we have our Corral Copper project and our Tombstone South project. One of the primary strategies and de-risking strategies we did when putting this portfolio of assets together was to de-risk them right out of the gate by not selecting anything that sits in those green areas or the protected areas. So nothing sits in national parks or state forests that requires an extra regiment of permitting for drilling and for other future mining permits. So we're sitting in the middle of these great areas here where we're not encumbered at all, and that's the reason why we had 4 days of permitting requirements for our 2025 drill program. So when we look at Corral Copper, our flagship project, we didn't just acquire a single asset and are trying to retell the story or re-explore it in a different way with different eyes and a different team. We did earn arrangements with three different groups, three different properties adjacent to each other. And then we went out and staked a bunch of extra ground, and we purchased a bunch of extra ground on the MLS in the local market too. So just recently we put out a press release where we bought 350 acres of patented mining claims just to the south of our Ringo hot zone in Corral. But so we acquired these properties, and largely the first 2 years, this was a land consolidation effort, and before we even started drilling. And part of that earning agreements, we got 50,000 meters of drill core data. We didn't get any of the core. There was disputes and feuding between the various owners in the past, and they actually destroyed each other's core. But we used that 50,000 meters of drill core data to inform our 2024 drill program. And we raised money in January, started drilling in February, and started pushing out results, which were spectacular, like 113 meters at 1.5% copper, 0.53 grams per ton gold, and 8.22 grams per ton silver. And the spectacular thing isn't just that grade and that interval length. It's also that it's very near surface and it's on private land. So we continued to drill in 2024. We got some, additional extra, great results that we kept putting information out on, or news releases on. And then in 2025, we did another raise in March, and we started drilling right away and started repeating a lot of the same results. And I'd say at the end of 24, this was the first time that anybody had ever looked at this property from a district scale potential. And as such of the land consolidation efforts, we've now amassed over 12,000 acres in our land package. But, none of this has been looked at in consideration of, the entire district scale. But when we started putting these results out, we learned last fall, after the 2024 drill program, that there was a bit of a staking war going on around us. So we saw, some interested parties that were watching our results, obviously, and had some familiarity about the region and about that specific area. And once we were proving it up with our drilling, it appears that it validated and confirmed what others suspected, is that we have something here. So to the east of us, Rio Tinto staked a large position of land, and to the west and south of us, southwest of us, is Ivanhoe Electric. So two big groups, really, a great operator and an excellent explorer, one of the two of the top in both their areas. And then we started signing confidentiality agreements in late last year, and continued in through March and PDAC, and still continue to this day take on interest from other groups, as we manage a lot of site visits, a couple of repeat site visits, and so we're getting a lot of interest very early pre-resource, and that's what's great. And while that's all going on, we're still in the early parts of really understanding this as a district scale. Now we're looking at various different pieces of Corral, which is our Holiday, Earp, and Ringo zones, and which were different entities before we consolidated them. And as we look at them together, we're realizing, and with the drill program and the ongoing mapping of the outcrops, which has been just really important and informative to our understanding of the geology in the region and the district, is that we see a lot of it. We obviously drill into a lot of CRD, massive sulfide, and supergene chalcocite. We get a lot of that. So that's primarily what we're seeing from the drill core. And as we move around, especially around the Ringo zone, and we start moving out from Ringo, we're starting to map the outcrops in those areas. We're really starting to see a lot more of the leached upper porphyry stockworks. So this is where the porphyry is squirted to the surface in the past. And what we're understanding, and this is just a cartoon right here, is we're seeing that the area has been structurally altered along fault lines in under multiple panels through a lot of thrusting and back thrusting. And so so that's really helping us to understand and target the porphyry potential, so that we can get ready to drill some of those targets maybe later in the year still. So it's getting exciting now as we have a lot of site visits. The visitors, come in on day one wanting to see what the CRD potential is, which is significant, and they leave wanting to better understand what the porphyry potential is. And the reason that they're very interested is right to the south of us is a historical mine called the Copper Queen Mine, which was owned and operated by Phelps Dodge for 70 years or so. And we see a lot of similarities. We have a lot of the same hosted Paleozoic carbonate units, the Cambrian Ombrigo and Mississippian Escabrosa limestones in both Copper Queen and Corral. We see the high-grade carbonate replacement deposits formed via the skarn processes and the skarn, tubes, basically, feeding up from a porphyry source, both Copper Queen and Corral, and very, spatially associated with shallow porphyry deposits. So not looking at too deep here. So a lot of times you see porphyries you hear are associated with really deep drilling because of the folding and the back thrusting that we're seeing, the thrusting and back thrusting that we're seeing. We're thinking maybe the Paleozoic down is more Paleozoic lateral, and so we are seeing a ton of similarities such as the Copper Queen started out at 53 million tons of the CRD at 6%, which is very identical to what the CRD Abrigo host limestone is, the same, very identical host rock at Corral that we see as well. It's what they have at Copper Queen. So, and then when Copper Queen got into their porphyry system, they mined it for another 60 years. So that's the large, long life that gets, potential for a mine that gets a lot of attention by the various interested groups. Again, back on the 2024 phase one drilling, just give a little bit more definition to that. So we did about 4,800 meters, 25 holes, just over half, 13 holes. We drilled into the Ringo zone. So we've got these three main zones, Holiday, Earp, and Ringo. And these are some of the really excellent, intervals. And then the intervals within the composites that we have, you can see some of these grades are, 63 meters at 2.5 or 2.6% copper almost. We've got 105 right here at 1.17% copper. Just some really, rock star kind of grades and everything that we're seeing. And then in 2025, we continued to drill and we saw more of the same. And we applied some more geophysics that we've done. We did a gravity survey to test gravity as something that can fingerprint mineralization. And what we saw was a lot of highlights or areas that were lighting up around Ringo and Earp and Holiday from the gravity survey, and what we did see was that there was this area just to the east of Ringo, which we call Target 3, and it lights up in that hot pink area and everything right there. And we haven't put any drill holes into that, but when you go out there and you look at the ground around there and you look at and map the outcrops, it's really interesting, and it's got a lot of that leached porphyry stockworks and a really intense alteration. So in 2025 here, one of the big holes we put out about a month ago was 216.5 meters at 0.71%. We saw a jump in our share price from 46 cents to 66 cents in a day. So that's getting a lot of attention as well. As we continue to build our leapfrog model from the drill holes, you can see right here in this cross section the shallow mineralization. How it is literally near surface, at surface, with all this mineralization. So very low strip ratio is the expectation here, and a lot more exploration and a lot more drilling is needed and everything to build these things out. But again, it's the early stage opportunity here for the increased upside potential. And at Ringo overall, our hot zone there, you can see here's a list, and when you download this presentation from our website, excuse me, you can go in and you can really dive into the weeds here on all of these drill holes and these intervals and really see how substantial this is, and how there's a potential resource building here of some decent size and excellent grades near surface and in private land. And again, more at Ringo, we have a cross section of some of the holes showing the shallow mineralization. We've even had some intervals returned at 20% copper, 8.5 grams per ton. We get into these pink areas here. There's mineralization pretty much near surface, but these pink areas are the massive sulfide, and you can really see that when we're getting into that, we're getting into the much higher grades and everything. So the development potential here is not only, there is past mining that's been done in this area, but there's also a lot of unexplored ground because it was done and it was so fragmented in the land ownership, and it was not a consolidated land package or a district scale set up for district scale exploration. So we've got a bit of brownfields and greenfield targets. We've got some brownfields from the historical drilling and data, and we're expanding out with our understanding of looking at this as a district scale. It's really expanding our understanding of what we need to do and opening our minds up to some greenfield targets. So so it's Corral is really building out fast, and we look forward to continuing to drill and then doing some more geophysics here in the fall. Our secondary project is Tombstone South. Tombstone South is another one of ours that we have permits, and the infrastructure and access on all of our projects is excellent. I mean, they just paved the road to our core shack at Corral not too long ago. Not because we asked for it, because just that's the way the development's going. It's remote enough though. It's in agricultural areas and at the foothills, and there's a 600 megawatt power plant not too far away that's largely being transferred over to solar power. And then there's 2 rail lines nearby that go directly to the coast. So we have access to all of those. We would have access to all of them. And as we get down to a point where we can develop resources on these, the financial models are going to be pretty attractive on the cost side of the equation. So, for instance, at Tombstone South here, we see a real strong analog with the Taylor deposit at Hermosa, which was owned by Arizona Mining and bought by South 32 in 2018 for $1.3 billion. We've done some geophysics and some other exploration work on the property, and we're seeing some real strong similarities between the Taylor deposit and the Tombstone and what we have at Tombstone. It's again CRD mineralization in 2 different age limestone units, the Mesozoic strata and the Paleozoic strata. The spatial relationship to a porphyry mineralization is very similar to what they see at Taylor, and the Paleozoic carbonate host rocks, are identical as well to what we have at Tombstone and then what they saw at Taylor. So the best way to describe that is with this cartoon. Is the Taylor deposit kind of sits in here, but like I said, between these 2 different age limestone units, and immediately adjacent to this fault system, or the avenue, or the pathway for the fluids to flow up from a heat source, which is the porphyry source over on the other side of the fault system, pushing those fluids up, and then seeing that lead zinc silver mineralization deposit out in between these two different limestone units. So we did a geophysics survey a couple of years ago, and it lit up just the same way, in a way that, quite frankly, our geologists struggled to explain how it could be interpreted any other way, where we do have this hot zone in the induced polarization survey that we did. And it sits right there at the interface between those two different limestone units, immediately adjacent to the fault system on the opposite side of a porphyry source, a heat source. So the porphyry heat source pushing the fluids up into this interface between these two limestone units. But the historical drilling has never really been deep enough before. BHP had drilled into some holes in here, and there's been some other explorers that have done some work in here. But really what we need to do is drill a couple of 1,000-meter holes into this anomaly. And prior to that, even doing some more geophysics to build it out. But we're really excited about the potential of this one. We already have the drill permits for this area. We just need to get some money and drill into it and drill deep. So we'll be looking to do that here in very soon, as soon as possible, for sure. And then Mesa Well, like I said, it's up in Elephant Country. It's flanked by Safford and Morenci, two operating mines that are owned by Freeport, one of the largest copper producers in the world. Freeport's got, they got over 6 and 7 billion tons out of each one of these, and they're mining at a rate at grades of about 4.4%, 0.5%. And remember, we're looking at Corral at CRD type mineralization near surface, north of 100 meter, north of 0.7 percent, north of 0.5 up to 1.5% copper at surface, and or near surface, and on private land. So very, very comparable in grade. And what we're seeing in the potential here at Mesa Well is some mineralization that's moving up to the northwest, but we have to get it back in there. We have to, it's structurally controlled copper oxide and copper moly type of quartz veining and everything. But we're going to get back in there and do some additional groundwork and geophysics and everything before we can start putting together and defining a drill program on that one. So, when we look at ourselves in comparison to our neighbors and to, some of the other stories in the area, we're a little behind from their development, and they're a few years more advanced than us in their work to develop their assets, and they're doing excellent. Everybody's pretty much aware of Arizona Sonoran and George Ogilvie and Paul Harbridge at Faraday Copper, and they're just doing excellent work to expand their potential and de-risk their projects. And we're on the early stage of those, and we're seeing some excellent results from the ground. We just need to continue drilling. We need to continue exploring and building out these sizes, and then eventually get ourselves to a resource and a PEA. But I would say the opportunity exists for a significant amount of upside here as we continue to advance that. So it's just up to the investor to decide when they want to get in. So again, the 2025 outlook, we're going to continue exploration drilling. We're going to continue to target the high-grade CRD and porphyry mineralization. I think you're going to see us doing a lot more of the porphyry mineralization to come in the later part of the year. And at Tombstone, we're going to be looking to do a little bit more geophysics before we get a big drill rig on there to drill, and by the end of the year, early next year, to drill down into that anomaly. And, that's something that we hit into that, and that's going to be a game changer in the company. So I guess and then Mesa Well, I just got off of that one, so we'll evaluate the further value creation alternatives for that asset. But I guess that's essentially it, and I am moved way into a time where I've left minimal time for questions, but I will try to get to some of them as quickly as possible. Let's go. Let's see, where are we going here? Oops. So one question here is, what is cash position currently like, and how soon will the company need to raise funds to progress forward with the drill program? Well, currently we're just under $2 million in our treasury. I mentioned earlier about those warrants. We do have 19 million warrants. We're going to start pushing those warrants through a warrant incentive agreement to be exercised to bring in some cash, bring in cash to our treasury, and figure that will bring in plenty of cash into our treasury to put off any need for financing for a fair bit of time here, and allow us to finish out the year comfortably and moving into next year. Let me go on to another one here. Start another one, quick one. What is the standard turnaround time for drill results? Well, you can pay to expedite drill results, and that's supposed to be 2 weeks, and we do that sometimes. Standard time is supposed to be 4 weeks from our lab. What we see is that if we expedite them at 2 weeks, we end up getting a lot of over limits, which is good. So we've got really high grades. And then that adds another few days, so we don't quite get them in 2 weeks. So we can, but we have to pay double to get those results. So we do sometimes decide to do that when we see a particularly good looking hole that you can just see in the core. We will expedite those, and others, we'll just go with the standard 4 weeks, and it just depends on the timing of the, how we're doing with the drill and the recoveries and everything else. Let's see. I think I've answered that one. Sorry, I'm moving this around. How are you prioritizing your projects, Corral, Tombstone, and Mesa Well, and what are the 12-month milestones? Good question. We are prioritizing them in that order: Corral, Tombstone, and Mesa Well. Mesa Well is a project that's really interesting to us in a great area. It's just a matter of resources and availability of time and everything to work on that. And so if there's an opportunity to monetize that or transact on Mesa Well, we may consider that. Don't want to, but it's just a matter of trying to keep that project moving and everything. But Corral certainly is our flagship. We're going to look to drill some more. We are discussing potential for an early resource, maybe in the Ringo zone later in the year. But we really want to see, we've got a couple things we want to do in order, like we want to do some geophysics in the fall to learn more about the potential, the porphyry potential and the porphyry targets, because we're just getting into an area with the ground mapping and the outcrop mapping in consideration of some drill holes to the south and to the west, and that hot anomaly to the east, target 3, that we want to better understand those things before we make a decision on any kind of resource or anything like that. So we'll be looking in the next 12 months to get ourselves in a financially stable position through the drill holes and through the export and the surfacing of the porphyry potential, to not have to go back to the markets for quite some time, and then also be able to strongly fund Tombstone and drill into that anomaly, because that's a game changer right there. Both of those could be spinouts. Let me see here. What option is Intrepid considering for advancing Mesa Well? I think I discussed that one. And has there been discussions for JV or strategic investor? Yes, we've had lots of discussions with strategics. We've had we've passed around term sheets ever since last March at PDAC. And so we've had a lot of discussions. Nothing's gotten across the line because it takes a while to discuss those with these groups. But for the most part, yes, we have had those discussions, and they just take a long time. So I guess with that, I should probably end this. It's a little bit over now. And again, I want to thank OTC for hosting us, and for everybody for taking their time to listen to this presentation. If you have any questions, reach out. The presentation's on the website, and definitely if you're planning to go to any of the upcoming conferences and everything, look me up. I'd be glad to meet with you. Thank you.